Oh, okay. Thanks for your patience. You are in the right place if you are here for the Community Foundation of the North State's Fall Grants Workshop. I know it feels a little early for fall, but today is the first day of school here in Reading, and there is a little hint of fall in the air. So thank you so much for joining us and for your interest in learning about these grants and for all of the good work that you do on behalf of our North State communities, which brings you here today. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. First of all, thank you so much for being here and for taking the time. There's a lot of information and just one program officer. And so it's really wonderful that you're investing the time to be here and learn a little bit, because I'm hoping that we can answer some of the frequently asked questions that you might have on the grant applications. I did hit the record button, so we'll be recording this presentation and we'll email it out to you and also post it on our website along with these PowerPoint slides. Everyone's on mute, can't see or hear you all. And we will be accepting questions in the chat box throughout. If we can't get to your questions for some reason at the end, we'll make sure to put all of our contact info in, so you can reach out if you have further questions. Our goals for today, the first one is to learn if your organization or your specific project is a fit for our four fall fund opportunities here at the Community Foundation. And we'll also just do a quick overview of our online application portal. We launched this last year, and so for some of you it won't be new, but for some of you it will be new. So we're just going to do a quick glance, kind of the first steps on how to get into that software and a few pro tips. It is very nice to meet you. I've met many of you before, at least virtually, some of you in person, which is extra lovely. But my name's Megan. I'm the program officer here at the Community Foundation. I've worked for about 15 years or a little more as a nonprofit fundraiser, written a lot of grants, gotten awarded, and also denied a lot of grants. And now I'm on the flip side, and I'm the contact here at the Community Foundation for all of our outbound grants to nonprofits and public agencies. I am also here with my wonderful colleague, Nikki. She's been here at the Community Foundation longer than me, since 2019, and she's such a treasure. She manages our scholarship programs, and she will be answering your questions in the chat box today. It's hard for me to multitask and proceed on with the workshop while looking at that. I really appreciate people who are able to multitask like that. But thank you, Nikki, for answering questions in the chat box. If you haven't yet, if you want to say hi and let us know where you're at, who you are, what organization you're representing, it's really fun to see who's in person today. We had almost 200 people sign up for this webinar, and I know many people couldn't make it live. They're going to watch the recording, but it's just wonderful to see so many people doing such great work in our communities. So thank you. So what is the Community Foundation? Who are we? The Community Foundation, we're actually a nonprofit. We're a public charity that primarily serves Shasta, Siskiyou, and Tehama counties. And our mission is to connect philanthropic people to the causes that matter to them. We function a little bit like a charitable bank where people give here to the Community Foundation. We grow their funds through investments and other tools like that, and then we grant monies out to charitable causes. I do want to point out that we also do have a few funds that support Trinity and Modoc counties, and we're thrilled for those. One of them will be offering for Trinity County today, so I hope we have some Trinity folk on the line. And apart from grants, how can we help your cause? Here at the Community Foundation, we do offer these competitive application-based grants. We also work with those fund advisors, so people that house funds here at the Community Foundation, to recommend organizations and projects to grant to in a non-competitive way. And so we do a little bit of matchmaking behind the scenes. It's really wonderful that you invest time in submitting applications, because then we kind of know what you're up to. And outside of the competitive apps, we can often recommend you to some of our other more private family fund holders. We also host North State Giving Tuesday, which is coming up. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end. And we also host the Jumpstart Fundraising Accelerator, which is a program through the National Nonprofit Network for Good that trains organizations on how to increase individual giving, especially through technology tools. So we just announced a week or two ago our school year 23-24 cohort, and we're really excited for the third year of this program. We can also help if you're representing a nonprofit today versus like a public agency. We can also work with your donors to help process tricky gifts, things like stocks, bonds, IRA transfers, real estate. So if you have a donor that wants to give a gift like that and you could use some help processing it, that's a service that we offer here. And we also set up and manage organizational endowment funds. And so if your organization receives a planned gift or an estate gift, and you'd like to invest it and then have returns with interest over time, that's something we can offer too, and we're always happy to share more about that. But the real reason we are here today is to talk about our fall grant opportunities. So we are delighted to have 4 opportunities this fall. The Women's Fund, this is for groups in the Reading area. This is the first one that we have coming up due in just a few short weeks. I want to point out that all of the applications are due at 5 p.m. on the due date, and that's so that we can provide technical assistance while folk are working on them as the deadline approaches. The Reading Rancheria Community Fund, this is for Shasta and Trinity counties. Welcome, Trinity County folk. This one is due September 13th. And then followed by the Animal Welfare Endowment Fund and the Community Arts Endowment Fund. These are both due on September 20th. The Animal Welfare Fund is offered in Shasta, Siskiyou, and Tehama counties, and the Community Arts Endowment Fund is just Siskiyou and Shasta counties. Sorry, Tehama. We'll see what we can do about that in the future. All right, so we're going to dive just briefly into each of these funds so you can start thinking about whether they might be a fit or not for your organization. The first one is the Women's Fund, and the monies for this fund come from over 10 years of donors to the Women's Fund. So many families in the Reading area have contributed to this fund and helped grow it over time. The Women's Fund mission is to create a better future for women and their families in the Reading area. And in the past, this grant opportunity has had some further restrictions on it, but now it is pretty broad, so which is really wonderful because there's a lot of great projects and things happening in this realm. So this is one that your group would be eligible for as long as the work that you're doing or the project that you're doing is really focused on creating a better future for women and their families in the Reading area. The Reading area is defined as the Shasta County portion of Cottonwood to the south. Shasta Lake City is the northern boundary, Palisadro is the eastern boundary, and Ono to the west. So if you're just kind of in the Reading metro area, I don't usually think of Reading as super urban, but if you're in the Reading metro area, your organization would qualify. The grant range for this, the minimum that a group could request is 1,000 and the maximum is 10,000. Another wonderful way that the Women's Fund has opened up their parameters in recent years is to include salaries. We know that salaries are important to nonprofits these days, and so this is one fund where that can be part of your request or your ask in your project budget. One special thing about this particular fund is that for the grantees or the awardees that are selected by the community-based grant review panel, if you get a grant or a reward this cycle from this fund, you'll be asked to attend a Giving Circle event the evening of November 8th, and event attendees will come to that event, learn more about your cause, and then vote on one recipient to receive additional bonus unrestricted dollars raised at the event by those participants. So kind of a fun little bonus perk. All right, next up is the Reading Rancheria Community Fund, and we are so grateful for our partnership with the Reading Rancheria. They're one of our most longtime partners here at the Community Foundation, and the Reading Rancheria has a number of business ventures, including the Wind River Casino, of which proceeds support this fund. This fund serves Shasta and Trinity counties. The range is $1,000 to $10,000, and the average award size is about $2,500. And this is new this cycle. So I'm very excited to introduce that for the Reading Rancheria Community Fund this cycle, all of the grants will be for general support except salaries. So the application will not be project-based. You don't have to come up with a project budget or a timeline. If you're awarded a grant, it can be used for most anything except salaries. That was one thing that they asked us to continue. But you can use it for things like equipment, capital improvements, services, rent, other bills that your organization might have. And so it's very flexible. And this is in recognition of the good work that you do is nonprofits. We want to make things as flexible as possible for you. And this was one opportunity where we've been able to switch this over. We will ask in the application for more general information about your organization. What are you up to? What are your kind of big picture goals? And some of those questions will be in lieu of the kinds of questions we've asked in the past, which were like, what specifically do you want? How much specifically is that? And what's the timeline? So it's going to be just more broader info about your organization. This fund also, they do serve a broad variety of nonprofits. They encourage groups in particular that serve Native Americans, youth, and or rural communities, but they've also been a huge supporter of public safety, fire districts, all kinds of different organizations. So if you're not one of these three, that's okay. Please do still consider applying, but they do particularly like to see applications focusing on those three areas. Next up, the Animal Welfare Endowment Fund. This fund is made possible by a variety of generous individuals, kind people who have made gifts into this fund, which is a field of interest fund here at the Community Foundation. And it has grown over time. So we're very grateful. And if you love animals, you can give to this fund too and help it grow so that for years in the future, we can help support a variety of animal causes in the North State. This fund serves Shasta, Siskiyou, and Tehama counties. The grant range, so what you can ask for is $1,000 to $5,000. The average size the past few years has been about $2,500. As we grow the fund, we're hoping to grow these amounts in the future. And this is another one where we are so excited to be able to switch over this cycle and offer grants for general support. So unrestricted dollars. This can be for salaries. You can basically, if you're awarded a grant, can use it in the way which your nonprofit sees fit as it relates to the welfare of animals in the following categories. So we are looking for organizations that are supporting homeless animals or owned pets. So reducing overpopulation and shelter deaths. We know a lot of shelters and rescue groups right now are working to keep pets in homes as owners are struggling with increased costs. So this first category is really going to encompass most animal rescue groups and shelters here in the North State, if not all. We also accept applications for groups that are supporting the care of wildlife here in the North State. This could be rescue or rehabilitation or supporting animals out in nature. We've seen some interesting projects in recent years, things from wildlife guzzlers to roadway safety for wildlife, all kinds of interesting things. So wildlife is another potential category. And then last but not least, this fund accepts applications that support working animals. And so this is care for organizationally owned animals that provide a service to local residents. What we see most often here are therapeutic horse sanctuaries that provide services, therapy services, whether it's for children or veterans. There's a number of these wonderful groups in the North State. So we're accepting applications for that as well. We know that hay prices have gone up exponentially for these groups, and yeah, it's just tough times with cost increases. So again, for this fund, new this cycle, we won't be asking for specific project information like a budget or timeline. Instead, the application is just general info on your organization, what you're up to this year as it relates to the welfare of animals. And then there's two questions. One is how your group is working with other groups in terms of helping animals in the region, and then also how you're using data to show the need and impact of your work. We know that there's some neat tools out there right now, especially in the sheltering world, whether it's through Best Friends Animal Society, their data tracking, or Shelter Animals Count. So if you're using those, we're interested in learning more about that and how you're doing that. But I really hope it's our deepest hope that this makes your lives easier. That is what we want, knowing that, you know, to try and right size it for the dollar amount. So if you have any questions on either the Redding Rancheria and the Animal Welfare Fund and how they have switched from restricted project-based to more general support grants, please feel free to holler. I'm happy to share more offline. And last but not least, the Community Arts Endowment Fund. This fund is made thanks from generous donors to the Artisipate campaign, which is a fundraising campaign that happened years ago, but is still reaping rewards because it's an endowment fund. So we're grateful to those donors. Grants are in the range of $1,000 to $2,500. This is primarily for Shasta and Siskiyou counties. One interesting and fun thing about this fund is that individual artists can apply as well. And so if you're an individual artist, you can submit an application. You don't have to be through a 501c3 or public agency. We're able to accept individual artist applications in this category. I want to really clarify and drive home that this fund, as it is currently structured, is for the presentation of new public artworks. So it's not for ongoing arts programming. It's not for private works of art that can be sold for profit. It's for new public artworks in Shasta or Siskiyou counties. That said, you know, the first thing that comes to mind when we say that might be murals or sculptures or things like that. But it can also be for new theater pieces. We had an awardee a few years ago, the Hornbrook Community Association, that put on a theater piece during their annual homecoming event that was telling stories from survivors of the Klamathon fire. So anything that's like an original work that's made available publicly, that's related to dance, theater, music, writing, sculpture, painting, photography, film, and graphic design. This one continues to be project-based, and so in the application, you'll be asked to submit a budget, a timeline, and things like that. So just a few more notes on eligibility. I know there's a lot of words on the screen, so take a moment, I will too, to take a deep breath and defuzz your eyes. I know sometimes the fine print can get difficult, but in terms of eligibility, what we're looking for is your organization a nonprofit, which means, you know, we are defining this as a 501c3 tax-exempt public charity. We have received some applications over the past year from private foundations. Sometimes that's because when the organization was established, it got filed wrong, which is unfortunate. But again, we're looking for 501c tax-exempt public charities or public agencies like school districts or volunteer fire departments, things like that. Or If you have a program or a project that has a fiscal sponsor agreement where a nonprofit or public entity is helping you, taking you under their wing and helping you, that would also be eligible. Or for the art fund only individual artists. I also want to make special note that federally recognized tribes can apply under the public agency status. And for tribes that are not federally recognized, we welcome you to apply with either a nonprofit status. Some of our local non-federally recognized tribes have a nonprofit arm or a fiscal sponsor. Next, we look at, is your organization in good standing, both here at the Community Foundation with us. For us, that's, have you submitted all reports that are past due? So if you've received an award, a grant, and it's not, the grant report isn't due, until December, that's fine. If you received a grant from the Community Foundation and there was a report that was due last year, December, that's not fine. That we need to have the report submitted before we can consider your application. Something wonderful about our new portal is that you can look within your organization and see if there's any past due reports. And my best advice for the portal is just to pop in there and poke around a bit, like any new software. If you are looking for this info and aren't sure if you have past due reports or not and need a hand, please feel free to reach out and we can point you to exactly where that is. We also check to see if your organization is in good standing with both state and federal registrations. We do this by checking on GuideStar for your IRS status and the California Secretary of State. If your organization is housed out of state, but you do work in our local counties, we check that state. And you can do this yourself, and I encourage you to do this before submitting an application, especially with the Secretary of State in California. They switched to an online system a year or so ago, and there's many organizations that come up when you search that say that a statement of info is past due. That comes up as a flag for us and is something that needs to be remedied. So please remedy this before you submit the application. It can be turned around same day for some organizations, and others have to go through a process where you get mailed a postcard with some info if like the contact person has changed. So when we put these slides up on our website and email them out, you can see that where it says GuideStar and Secretary of State, those are hyperlinked. We also have these links hyperlinked in the applications. Please take a moment and check on your organization before you submit, and you'll see if there's any flags that will come up in red print. That's what we look for. Look for the red. And if you see those and aren't sure how to remedy, drop us a line. Next, can your organization complete the project in accordance to the terms and timeframes? For the project-based grants, this is typically 12 months. We don't do reimbursements, so this would be 12 months following the acceptance of the grant award. For general support grants, this is just, can you spend the money in 12 months, which at the dollar amounts of around $2,500, we know you can. And can your organization also comply with the policies like our non-discrimination policy, which is stated at the bottom of each application? Last but not least, again, my eyeballs go fuzzy reading fine print. I'm sure yours do too, but it's really important for each of these applications before you start to go through. There's application preview buttons for each fund on our website. But do read all of that fine print just to make sure that the costs you're looking for are eligible, that you meet the geographic and programmatic criteria. It happens every cycle, and it super breaks my heart when we get applications for things that aren't eligible. And it was stated in the fine print. So take a moment and take a look. And if you're not sure, if the language isn't clear and you have questions, please reach out. Next, what's in an application? So for project-based grants, we want to know a little bit more about your specific project, like why it's needed, what kind of impact will it make. We're looking for a project-based budget, so how much it will cost, how much you've already raised perhaps on the project if it's a big dollar project, and then a timeline for completion. For general support grants, which again includes animal welfare and the Reading Rancheria Fund, we won't ask for those things, but we're looking for big picture information about your organization. So a little bit of history, what you're doing presently, your financial health. So we ask for some financial documents. We're trying to share with our community-based review panels information that they need to make good decisions with the funds that are available. Applications aren't solely read and decided on by me. They are read and decided on by community-based review panels, which is something that makes the community foundations in general so special. That said, you have permission to keep your applications brief and simple. We have set the character limits pretty big. Most fields are up to 3,500 words. And that's just so if you have done other applications for a similar project with other funders, you can just, our hope is that you can just copy that and paste it in. I know for myself, when I have applied for grants, I would try and do that with some applications, and the character limit would be different, and then I'd have to go through the application and like take out a bunch of text, and it was so laborious. And so that's really why we've set it high. So you don't have to truncate it down if you don't want to, if you have existing text. But you do not have to write to those limits. So for most of our questions, just think 1 or 2 paragraphs. Again, the applications are being read by community members that have many applications to read. And so we're just kind of looking for general information. It doesn't need to be, a 10 paragraph novel, and it will actually help you if it is more simple and something easy for people to wrap their brain around as they're moving quickly through many applications. Where do I find the applications? So our main source for all things grants here at the Community Foundation is this website I have in orange at the bottom. It's cfnorthstate.org/grant/grants. I have some screen snips here. What you'll see as you scroll down on that page is what grant opportunities are available. You can click that little application status open box if you just want to see the 4 fall funds, or you can scroll down to the ones that you're looking for in specific and click that read more button. Once you click read more, it will take you to the screen snip you see on the right here, where it just has a little bit of information about the fund. You can look at past grant awards, which can sometimes be helpful, although don't feel like you have to, do exactly what other groups were doing. Novel can be good too sometimes, but it does help kind of give an idea. It has the deadline. The preview applications question is a spot where you can download the questions in advance before you go through the process of registering if you're brand new and just want to take a look. And then the click here to apply button is what actually takes you into the portal. I do want to point out that on the preview application questions, when you click that and it downloads a PDF that has all of the questions, one thing that I don't love, but it is what it is that it shows the questions for whether you're applying as a nonprofit, a public agency, or with a fiscal sponsor. And so each of those comes up. Just know that you're only going to need to answer one set of those questions based on how you're applying. You don't have to answer all 3. Sometimes I have people that call and they're like, what's all this fiscal sponsor stuff? Why do I have to do that? You don't. This preview shows all 3 of those options. All right, so a little more on our new grants portal. We launched this last fall, so for some of you, it will be you will have used it before. Others of you, it may be brand new. There's some great new features that we didn't have in our previous software. For starters, when you log in, there's a nice applicant dashboard where you can look at all of your past and in-progress applications in one home. This fall, we are migrating our denied info as well in there. So at some point this fall, you'll be able to see like really a full history of your organization, what you've applied for and been awarded, which can be helpful. The organizational info only gets entered once, which is nice. So every time you start a new application, you're not having to say like your address and all that kind of stuff. That said, one quirk is that do check that organizational info. And if any of it has changed, drop me a line, because for reasons related to how it connects with our accounting software, we have to be the ones to change that organizational info. So if your address has changed or anything major like that, please check that out in the portal and let me know if there's updates. Another nice feature is that you can invite collaborators in to help with an application. So if you're maybe a board secretary and your board treasurer has access to the financial documents we need, you can click this link here that's in this PowerPoint for instructions on how to do this, but you can actually invite them in so that they can work on the application too, which is really nice. This new software more frequently auto-saves, which is fantastic, especially in our rural areas where sometimes the internet will have a moment. So it does more frequently auto-save. It also houses electronic grant agreements. So many of you know that we used to mail out contracts and then wait for those contracts to come back with a wedding signature. And now that's done online, which means that if you're awarded, you will receive your payment quicker, which is great. And last but not least, agreements and reports get linked to the application and will send you auto reminders. So if you are awarded a grant and are assigned either that online agreement or a report at the end of the grant period, it will send you emails saying, hey, your agreement's due, or hey, your report's coming up due, which is really nice and helpful. The only thing is if you pay attention to what email you're using to apply for the grants, because if if you're no longer able to volunteer for the organization, the emails will still come to you unless you let us know otherwise. If you know that you're like terming off a board or switching jobs or things like that, just drop us a line so that we can reassign those reminders. A lot of change these days. So I just wanted to review a little bit, creating a new account. If you applied for our grants last fall or last spring, use that account unless the person at your organization has changed. If the person at your organization has changed, it's very likely that your organization is going to have a record already. And so if that's the case, we need you to not create a new organization, but to just contact us and we will add you as a user under that organization. This helps us not have many duplicate organizations in our system, which can get confusing and won't give you a full picture of everything that your organization has applied for and whatnot. So if you think that your organization has a grant history, but you're not sure and you're not sure if you're a user, just drop me a quick line and we'll look. If you are brand new, meaning you've never applied for a grant at the Community Foundation, and you know that your organization's never applied for a grant with the Community Foundation, you can create a brand new organizational account. Later, once you've created your account, in order to get back in, what you'll want to do is, again, head to our main grants website and scroll down to where it says visit our grants portal. If you click there, that will always take you back to the main login page. You can also bookmark the login page. It has a really long name. It's like grant interface, something, something. It goes on. And so I like to bookmark it, but just know that if you lose that long link, that you can always access it from our main grant page. A few notes on starting an application. Once your account is created, the system is going to have you take an eligibility quiz. And this is just so we can get some of those like main parameters out in front of you before you apply, just in case there's any like really big things. We want to make sure that people are only submitting applications for which they're eligible. So again, once you log in, you'll see a button that says Start Eligibility Quiz. If for some reason you answer a question wrong and it says that you're not eligible, but you really know you are, please reach out to us and we can reset the test. Sometimes people just hit the wrong button on accident and then it won't let you apply until we reset it. So take a moment when you're doing these eligibility quizzes to really slow down and make sure that you're digesting the questions and answering them accurately where possible. If you're really not eligible, it will let you know. And if you want to know why specifically, feel free to contact us and we can see exactly why. Sometimes it's, you're not in the right county or things like that. Sometimes it's just a slip of a wrist and you are in it and we need to reset it. But once you have gone through that and you are eligible, then it's going to pop up that apply button, and that will take you actually into the application. So eligibility quiz first and then the application. Once you have gone through the application, at the very end, when you hit the submit button, it's going to give you a confirmation screen and send you a confirmation email. If you don't get that confirmation screen or confirmation email, perhaps you did not hit submit or the internet had one of those glitches during that process. If that's the case and you're like, wait, did that go through? And you're not sure, you can reach out, but it probably didn't go through unless you got the confirmation screen and email. So try again. You want to hit the big submit button at the bottom. Another nice thing about this new portal is that you can go back into that application at any time after you've submitted it and download it. It calls it download application packet. And that lets you download a PDF of all of your responses. I know I like to do this and have in the past when I've written grants for organizations, because sometimes you can use that information again or just for record keeping. And so it's a really nice feature where, again, you can, for your team, for your own records, keep a record of what you submitted. So there's a lot more to it than this, but it's a lot, and I don't want to talk your ear up, for 4 hours. We could probably have a 4-hour webinar on this, but really the easiest way is to just hop into this system and start looking around. We're here for you if you have specific questions. Also, from our main grants webpage, there is a little tab that says instructions for submitting grant applications. So if you're the type of person that likes to go through things step by step, we have step-by-step instructions with screen snips. I know for me, that's very helpful. Sometimes if I'm getting frustrated in any kind of tech software, I just need to go through things one by one with visuals, and we do have that for you. Also, when you click there, there's an option will come up to watch some videos. I have a little screen snip here of what that looks like, but they're very short, like 5 minutes max, and those can be really helpful too. So there are 200 of you applicants and one of me. And so, we usually do request. You're here now on this webinar, which is a ginormous first step. If you're getting stuck, take a look at some of these resources. If you're getting really stuck, call or email us. We're happy to help. But please do note that because this is still a relatively new system for many groups, and just because, again, there's only me, we are a bit limited on technical assistance as it approaches the deadline. So if you are able, knowing all of the constraints that are on all of us in 2023, to start these applications sooner rather than later, that's very helpful. Starting them at 4 p.m. the day of can be very difficult because we may not be able to answer all of your questions prior to the submitting. So I've been there, I get it. I know you all have a lot on your plates and sometimes that just happens, but if you're able to start them sooner, that will be great and that will help us help you. So what happens next after you submit the application? We do what we call due diligence to ensure that your organization is qualified. So again, we're checking GuideStar, we're checking that California Secretary of State, making sure there's no red saying that you owe a statement of info and that kind of stuff. So please do that first before you submit your application. And then once we have taken a look, we send qualified applications to the community-based review panels, which are made up of volunteers. We might have follow-up questions. So during this period, let's say for a due date of September 20th, at least in the month after that, please do be checking both the email that you used to apply and that email's spam or junk filter. I know some people use logins that are like an organization email, like sallyspetrescue@gmail.com, and then maybe that email's not monitored a whole lot, please monitor it, because we often have follow-up questions and need additional information. And it's always really sad, like if we send those out by email and then don't hear from a group. It doesn't mean that you won't get a grant, but it does kind of leave the panel going, like, why didn't we get this extra info? We're not really sure the answers to our questions. So be checking that email, whatever email you use to apply. And the junk filter. Y'all know about junk email filters. A lot of our stuff gets caught up in them. The cyberspace world thinks that it's spam. So do check those regularly, because you don't want to miss a follow-up email because it's in your spam box. After that, when we have all the information, the decisions are made by these community-based grant review panels. They're then reviewed for like a final stamp of approval by our board here at the Community Foundation. Again, we're a nonprofit. We have a board. They look at everything and make sure everything's kosher. And then we send out award notices and denied notices through the portal. So it used to be that we would mail out award letters and mail out denial letters. And now we are saving paper, saving trees, and all of that comes through emails that are sent through the portal. Those emails in particular really get caught up in spam filters. So again, just please check that. This whole process takes about 3 months. And so for these grants that are due in September, that is September to October, October to November, November to December. So like mid-December is when you will probably be hearing from us on these. It's possible it will be sooner. Just it depends on a lot of different factors. But if we can do it sooner, we will, because we know that you're doing great work out in the community, that you could use the funds sooner rather than later. And so just know that we're doing everything we can to move things along in a speedy way. I like to think of it is like a little treasure hunt. Like once you hit the submit button, like where does it go? It goes through all of these steps so that we can maintain our status as a nonprofit funder as well. There's a lot of things we have to check in on. If your organization gets a grant, here's what will come next. We will send you an online grant agreement. It's very standard kind of boilerplate stuff. It says that you'll agree to use the funds as you've noted in the application, that you won't use the funds for political lobbying, all of these kind of things. We just use a very standard agreement. Once we receive the signed copy back from you, then we put you in our weekly check queue and then mail a check for the full amount. So we still are mailing checks. One day, I think we're going to be going to an electronic funds transfer, but for now we are mailing checks. From there, you'll have 12 months to complete your project or to spend the money if it's for general support, and then submit a grant report at the end of that period, letting us know how it went. Again, you'll get auto email reminders to whatever email you applied with. And grant reports are really helpful for us. There's two main things that we do with grant reports. They help us share your story about the great work that you're doing, whether it's animal related or art related, whatever it is. It helps us share your story both back to the funder. So whether that's the Rancheria or donors to the Animal Fund, donors to the Women's Fund, it helps us share your story back to them to be good stewards. And it also helps us share your story out to the larger world too. We often take grant report information and make social media posts or include them in our annual report or other publications. And so it's really helpful. It's also helpful, we typically ask for photos in the report. We usually let groups submit a few photos. And so if you did apply for a project-based grant and have done something really specific, like let's say, for instance, you used the funds to buy a piece of equipment, Yes, you can submit a photo of the piece of equipment, and that's fine. It lets us know you did what you said, but we trust that you did what you said. And what we'd really love to see are some photos that share a story about how the grant made an impact on people. So, people using that equipment or benefiting from the equipment. Front-facing photos of people impacted that have been photo released are super helpful. So you can see in this screen snip here, Ascend Wilderness Experience, one of our Trinity nonprofits, they submitted some great photos to us, and our marketing manager, Jill, was able to convert it into a social post and spread the word about the great work that they're doing. So these kind of give you an example of what kind of photos we're looking for in grant reports. I always think about roofs. I don't know if anyone will be applying for roofs this particular cycle, but maybe in the spring with the McConnell Fund. Yes, you can send us a picture of a completed roof, but even more, we'd love pictures of people participating in programs that are dry and safe, that are at your building that got a new roof. That's really the best. I hope that this clarifies this a little bit. Grant reports also help us account for how the monies were spent. As a nonprofit funder, our auditors are actually here on site this week. There's a lot that we have to provide that shows that everything is done above board. And so we request in the grant report for you to show us how you spent the money. So what is best is if you have applied for a project-based grant, to just pull up the original budget that you submit in the application and add in a column that says, actual. So, maybe there's the estimate of what you thought it might be, and then there's the actual of what all the things cost that you bought. That really helps us see, here's what you thought it was going to be, here's what it was, the money was spent, all is good. If you, again, I'm so excited, new this cycle, if you are awarded for a general support grant, what we're going to be looking for in that report is a simple income and expense for the grant period. So for instance, if you're awarded a grant in December and you sign the agreement, starting December 15th, as an example, you'll have until December 15th the following year to spend those monies. And so you would submit an income and expense for that December to December time period. And again, that just lets us see that all of the monies were spent within that time period. And if your organization doesn't get a grant, I know that's hard. I've been there, I've lived that. Please keep trying. We've seen groups that have applied, several times, and they contact us and they're frustrated they haven't gotten one, and then they'll get one. It is very dependent on a lot of different factors and conditions. So please keep trying. Please also reach out for feedback. This spring, I'm not sure if it's because we sent the notices through email or what, but we had like a record number of groups that replied to our denial notices saying, hey, can we have some feedback? It took me a few months to get through everyone, but I hope it's helpful. Sometimes there are like real tangible reasons or things that you can improve on, or eligibility things that we're able to share. Like it's a great project, but it actually wasn't eligible because of X, Y, or Z. If there are tangible actual things where we can provide coaching and feedback, we're happy to do that. Sometimes there's not, and I know that that's difficult. All of these funds have limited dollars in them. All of these funds typically get many more applications than what we're able to fund. It's one of the hardest things about this work. In an ideal world, I would fund them all. That's why we keep fundraising to support these funds. But just know that there are some times where there really isn't any particular feedback. It's just what rises to the top for the panels, given all the circumstances of the world at that moment in time. One lovely thing that I really appreciate about the Community Foundation is because we are like a charitable bank and we do have, these competitive funds, but then we also have, 150 total funds. So many of our funds are non-competitive. we typically communicate with those private donor advised family fund holders and say, at the end of a cycle, here's some amazing projects that were either partially funded or unfunded that could use support. Would you like to invest in them? And it always is so wonderful to see our donor advised family fund holders, looking at that list of your organizations and projects and choosing some from it and making grants from their funds. So I like to think of, submitting applications. We know that it takes you time. We know that it's a lot of work. It's helpful for me when I was applying for grants from the Community Foundation to think of them like an investment in time to let the Community Foundation know what my organization was up to, knowing that it will be considered for the particular competitive fund I'm applying for, but also will be shared with these donor advised fund holders in hopes that they might fund too. So it does happen. And my last piece of friendly, unsolicited advice is to seek diverse revenues. Grants are just one slice of the funding pie. Our Jumpstart Fundraiser Accelerator program really focuses on this component, but a healthy nonprofit should have a variety of different ways and means that you're supporting the work that you're doing. So planned giving, major gifts, sponsorships. We hear from a lot of groups that their event component is, too much of the pie or a lot of the pie. And we all saw what happened during COVID. That was so difficult when groups weren't able to hold in-person fundraisers, which is why, we just encourage groups as you're able to start to look at, if you're not already, some of you are, but if you're not, how might you expand your fundraising to individuals? How might you start a planned giving program and things like that? I should put in a shameless plug here for my colleague, Andrea Scott. She is new to the Community Foundation. She's been here about a year. She's a director of gift planning, and she has been, her primary role is to start new funds here at the Community Foundation or find donors to support our existing funds. But she also has been doing a really bang up job working with nonprofits to talk to nonprofits about planned giving in particular, so that you can better talk to your donors about accepting gifts of stock or IRA transfers or things like that. I know when I was a fundraiser, I wasn't super familiar with that kind of stuff, but is more, particularly now at this moment in time, as more boomers are coming through and retiring, there's a lot of wealth that's maybe not in the form of cash, but in real estate and other things. And she's happy to have conversations with your organization to learn more about that. So if you're interested in that, you can find her on our website with her contact information and set up a time to chat. Another shameless plug for another upcoming opportunity to help your nonprofit raise funds. North State Giving Tuesday is just right around the corner. And because we are always improving and always seeking the easiest and best software for you as the users, we had to switch platforms this past year, and we're using a new tool. So there's a new NSGT website that has some better features that we think y'all are going to really like and appreciate, with the goal of making everyone's lives easier. The registration actually opens next Monday. I know Thanksgiving, it feels so far away, but we have groups register pretty far in advance because it does take some time investment to put information about your nonprofit into this platform. There will be a webinar this upcoming Monday. You can go to our North State Giving Tuesday specific webpage and click on Notify Me to be sent more details about that webinar and about registering in general. You can email me questions about Giving Tuesday, but my colleague Miriam is our Giving Tuesday expert. And so you can reach her more directly and swiftly by emailing nsgt@cfnorthstate.org. And I believe that most of you are already familiar with North State Giving Tuesday, but I should mention and not just gloss over that North State Giving Tuesday in a nutshell is a global day of giving that is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So you have Thanksgiving, and then you have Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, all of these good things to kick off the holiday season, and Giving Tuesday is Cyber Monday. Giving Tuesday is the day where groups all over the world are encouraging people to give back. And we host a platform and do a lot of marketing in the North State to try and rally contributions to your cause. So if you're new to Giving Tuesday or want to participate this year, please tune into this opportunity. So that brings us to the end. I wanted to make sure to put my contact information here on this last slide. If you have questions while you're applying and going through this process, please reach out. I have a little photo here of my colleagues. They're very friendly too if you get them on the phone. But definitely reach out. We'll do our best. We're a small team and we're a little light on staff right now too, as I know many of your organizations are. So thank you for your patience. But I think because we have a few minutes still, I'm going to just pop open the chat. This is the official formal end of our webinar. But because we have a few minutes, amazingly, I'm just going to open the chat and see if I can help Nikki if there's a whole bunch of questions at the end. So let me get my mouse working here and pull up the chat. And if all of your questions are answered, if you're feeling good, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time investment today in attending this webinar, which I hope answered, a lot of your questions right off the bat. So if you have questions right now, I've got the chat open. Great question, Trisha. Yes, GLM, I'm so sorry. We get into acronyms. GLM, it stands for Grant. Oh gosh, I don't even know. That's terrible. I think it's Grant Lifecycle Manager, but it is the name of our new software portal, GLM. Yeah. Let's see if I can see a few more of these. Here's one from Laura McDuffie. Question on the Community Arts Grant. Does public in the new public artwork mean free to the public? That's a great question. My best answer for this is publicly accessible. If it's free, I believe that it will be more compelling and competitive with the panel. That said, not everything can be free. And, if you're with a symphony and are releasing into the world a new piece of music, it's understandable that the symphony would be selling tickets to see that piece of work. So this particular fund is one that we are hoping to grow over time. The grants aren't huge. There aren't, we're probably going to be able to make awards to maybe 4 or 5 organizations. And so again, it doesn't necessarily have to be free, but I do think that free is going to give it a little bit of a more competitive edge. So please apply either way, just knowing that will probably be one of the factors in the competitiveness. I hope that helps. Let's see if there's any other questions in here. Oh, that's nice. I see a lot of thank yous. That feeling is very mutual. Thank you for all of the great work that you all do. Your tireless, selfless work on behalf of our communities. Wonderful. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any other questions. If you're on the other end and are like, I do have a question, please do reach out. We'll make sure to get that. But for now, I'm going to stop the recording and just say thank you. And I hope that you all have a wonderful lunch and rest of your day. And thanks again. All right, farewell. There we go. There we go. Sometimes